Alrighty. Let me know you're here. It is Wednesday. It is session number 19. 19 of Creative Ignition. So it is a very good evening if you're watching live. It's a very warm welcome whenever you're watching, if you're watching recording. And this evening, this entire journey has really blown my mind. Seeing the love, the effort, the energy you guys have poured into it, and in many cases the money as well that you guys have poured into it. And what's been so incredible is the synchronicities, the realizations, the transformations. And tonight's session is literally so fresh. I've literally just finished writing out, my session plan, because it's just downloaded a whole load of stuff I was never expecting. So I'm really excited to share it with you, because I feel like it could be, one of the most powerful sessions. It will probably still be a little rough around the edges. There's still probably some things to polish, but you guys are getting like the absolute, brand new stuff. So really looking forward to sharing it with you. Karen, good evening. Kaylee, good evening. Cameron, good morning. Michelle, how are you? It is wonderful to have you all here. And definitely take some time as other people are arriving to let yourself land, to let yourself arrive, because I'm certainly going to need to do that in the midst of mapping out this brand new session and just getting this crazy download stuff coming through about what needed to be in the session. My two children just decided they weren't going to bed and just were being crazy. It's been a massive challenge to be here with you, and it's been a beautiful one as well. And I definitely kind of send love and gratitude to Fan, because she's at, for the level of stress I've had, she's had to deal with like triple that. So I really, whilst I'm here in circle with you guys, also send my love to her as well. Michelle's still a zombie. Does that mean you've got up early and you're now here and you should be asleep? Nice, Cam. So yeah, you got the same. Get them in on the session. Show them what's going on. So yeah, it's it really I was doing a huge amount of washing up this afternoon, and I was listening to an audio by an amazing lady called Rianne Eisler. Definitely check her out if you haven't. Very, very, very wise elder when it comes to supporting the new story. Real kind of intellectual powerhouse as well. She wrote a book called The Chalice and the Blade, and most recently a book called The Real Wealth of Nations, which is a map for caring economics. So Rianne Eisler was talking about how fundamentally the new story will massively need to reevaluate how it values the role of the mother in society, where the work of the mother is just seen as a kind of, that just happens, rather than actually giving it a very quantifiable, very real economic value. When I see how hard Fan works, and I know Cam, I know Lisa is probably the same. The role of being a mother, Miranda as well, is just insane. So I really honor Fan this evening as we start the session. Michelle, I hope you can sleep well. Maybe this evening's session is so fresh, it's so new. Maybe it'll just it'll just send you to sleep. Maybe it'll be so exciting that you'll get such a massive buzz, and then when the session is over, you'll be like, oh my god, nothing can ever match up to that. So you just get a massive crash, and then you fall asleep. So one way or another, I hope you manage to get some sleep. Who else is here? I've seen Miranda is here, Liam is here, fantastic. Clint is listening on some motorway or A road, I would imagine. So it is very good to have you all with us. It is a real pleasure, a real honor. We'll give it one more minute, and then we will get cracking. Brilliant, fantastic. Seb is on the hub. Big up, Seb, on the hub. And Edwin as well. If you're watching on the hub, it's a pleasure to have you with us. It's so fantastic. So, metaphors. What's a metaphor? What's a metaphor? Any ideas? You know, something we, you know, maybe you've not had to consider what a metaphor was or is since you finished doing your GCSE exams or like your English exams, A-level, GCSE, whatever you have in Australia. It's a metaphor. And this is where I find out how long the delay is, because you guys are like maybe feverishly typing up. This is the definition of a metaphor, according to Wikipedia. So metaphors, you know, for me, really, you know, I've had a real connection with metaphor. For me, the way that best sums it up is if the soul speaks symbolically, which is the soul, you know, your kind of higher self, whatever you want to call it. The way it communicates is symbolically, through symbols, through synchronicities. You know, a synchronicity is simply a living symbol that shows to you that there is something of significance that needs to be paid attention to here. Okay. And Cam's saying I only teach maths and PE. Well, tonight is going to be an education for you, Cam. So the soul speaks symbolically. It, you know, gives us little hints, little kind of symbols to pay attention to, and its alphabet is metaphor. It's the way it puts its symbolic language together is using metaphor. Okay. And you know, my fundamental belief is that the heart is the mouthpiece of the soul, and the heart will also speak in metaphors. So, you know, maybe you say, oh, you know, I'm feeling a bit under the weather. Well, you know, if you say that to me, I know that means that it doesn't mean there's like a cloud raining on you, right? It means you're feeling a bit ill. If you say I'm on top of the world, it doesn't literally mean you're kind of out in space like Superman looking down at the earth. It means you're feeling great, right? We understand the world as human beings using metaphor. They tap into a very, very deep part of our, you know, I never know whether it's subconscious or unconscious, but, you know, it taps into something very deep. And in fact, you can even, I was just looking at Karen's thing about Wikipedia. I'm going to tell you an interesting fact in a minute about Wikipedia. But you can even say that language itself is a metaphor. And the reason for this is because, in fact, you know, when we look at the actual meaning of metaphor, we pick apart what the word means. It means to transfer over or to carry across. And when we get that sense, it's clear that language is simply a way we transfer over meaning from thought and emotion to an agreed way of communicating, which is language. So language is itself a living metaphor for how thoughts and emotions get communicated between two human beings. Okay. So you might, well, it's a bit kind of heady and a bit kind of intellectual at the moment. Cool. Well, let me clue in why metaphor is so powerful. Why is metaphor so powerful? Because in the context of, you know, sharing your gifts and of communicating to the world in a powerful way, metaphor gives you a way to, like, here's what I've written on my notes, a way to be unignorable as you communicate the unforgettable, which means that you can, you become someone who people can't ignore, and the message you're trying to get across becomes something they can't forget. Now, let me check. Is that something that would be pretty useful, right? To be someone who people couldn't ignore and to have your messages so that people couldn't forget them, right? That is the power of metaphor. And I'm going to prove it to you. So let me ask you a question. And by the way, I need to kind of just flesh out the definition of metaphor here as well, in terms of our session. I'm also talking about simile and allegory and a whole host of other kind of linguistic terms. I'm kind of using the general term of metaphor, okay? So let me ask you this question. Who here knows, actually no, let me ask a different question. Who here does not know how an electrical resistor works? So pop up in the comments. Maybe you've never even heard of an electrical resistor, or you've heard of it but you've got no idea how it works. So if that describes you, just click yes in the comments, like, or put no idea, right? Go ahead. So I'm going to do this as a live example of the power of metaphor. Okay, so Cam, Tiffany's like, what? Tiff, I didn't see you come on the session. So welcome, Tiffany. It's fantastic to have you with us. Tiffany's a poet. She probably knows far more about metaphor than I ever do. Same with Michelle. It's always good. I want to be the dumbest person in the circle. You know, then I'm learning, and hopefully we're all learning. So cool. Cam's never heard of one. Miranda's never heard of one. Great, fantastic. So Cam, Miranda, let me ask you this. Right? Do you know what a garden hose is? Do you know what a garden hose is? And I'm guessing you're nodding, saying yes. It's the thing that you put water through to water the plants. Okay, fantastic. So you know what a garden hose is, and this is me kind of doing a garden hose, right? Now I want you to imagine that we've got a garden hose here. I want you to imagine that there's a flap in the garden hose, right? There's a flap in the garden hose, and what happens when the flap is down? No water can get through the garden hose, right? What happens when the flap is up? Water goes through the garden hose, right? And what happens when maybe the flap is halfway down? Some water goes through the garden hose, okay? Well, that is what an electrical resistor does for an electric current. So instead of the hose, you've got an electric wire. Electricity is going through the wire. And if the electrical resistor is turned on fully, no current goes through the wire. If the electrical resistor is turned off fully, all the current goes through. If the electrical resistor is turned on a little bit, some current goes through. So let me ask you guys, Miranda, Cam, do you now know what an electrical resistor is? I'm hoping you're going to say yes. Cool. Yeah, good. So, and here's the question as well. Using the metaphor that I just shared with you, could you also explain what an electrical resistor is to someone who's never heard of one? And at this point, I'm hoping you're also saying yes, right? So what did we do? Well, again, remember the original meaning of metaphor was to carry across, to transfer over. So what did we have? We had something that was an unknown, an electrical resistor. And what we did is we connected it with something that was known, a garden hose. So we carried the meaning, the meaning or the understanding of a garden hose over to the unknown, the electrical resistor, and as a result, we made the electrical resistor unknown. Okay? So that is the power of metaphor. It allows you to create knowns from unknowns, and it allows you to also do something else, which is, and I'm going to share another example here, one that you may have read in my book, which is I call it the dog shit test. Okay, the dog shit test, and we're gonna explore the dog shit test in a bit more detail as we go through the session. Okay, but the dog shit test is essentially this, right? Let me ask you: have you ever had people say nasty things about you? Have you ever had people question your dreams, your goals, your gifts? Cool. Well, I'm guessing that everybody is nodding along. Yes, we've all had it at some point. And it may even be we've done that to ourselves. I definitely have, right? So here's the thing. Let me ask you this. If someone walked up to you with a nice little box wrapped up with a bow and said, "Here, I've got a gift for you." And they give you the gift and you open it up and it is a massive steaming pile of dog shit. Would you accept their gift? No. You tell them they can keep their lovely box and steaming pile of dog shit. You can tell them to keep their gifts. Well, listen, every time you accept the negative words of other people, every time you accept and choose to believe the negative words you give yourself, you're giving yourself a steaming pile of dog shit. And it's going to make your confidence and self-belief stink. Does this land? Do you get what I'm saying there? Okay. And yes, this is an example. It's also a freaking message. I do not want you to forget this message. You have beautiful gifts that the world needs. So stop letting other people's dog shit and your own dog shit make your gifts stink. Undermine your ability to give your gifts. The world needs you too much. So kind of emotional, like inspiring rant aside, what did we do with the dog shit test? Okay, so we took something that was mental and emotional, i.e. the negative words that yourself and others were giving to you. And we turned it into something physical that you could connect with very powerfully, aka a steaming pile of dog shit. Okay, so we created a very visceral, a very kind of what's visceral, like for people who don't know what visceral means, like a very alive, a very a kind of powerful way of experiencing in real terms what was happening on a mental and emotional level, because we created it as something physical. We transferred across the meaning. Okay. And why is this so powerful for you guys? Well, yesterday we looked at messages that move, okay? And hopefully you've got 3 or 4, maybe even 6 or 7, possibly even 12 messages that move, things that you want to share with the world, important messages that you feel related to your gifts or just related to being human that you feel the world needs to know, okay? So how do we get that message out there, or those messages out there? And each of those messages can be, it could be a blog post, it could be a video you make, it could even be the chapters of a book you choose to write, or a video like a creative ignition type journey that you put together. Okay, each of those key messages. What will now really help you to get those messages out there is to have creative ways to make people go, hey, fuck, I'm interested in that. Let me go and click on this blog post or this video and find out about it. So whether that's creating great headlines or creating kind of great ways of explaining those messages that you want to share, like, you know, the dog shit thing or the resistor. Okay. And guys, by the way, if you want to steal the dog shit test, go ahead, you know, be my guest. Absolutely. Okay. So, you know, literally I thought this session was just going to be about me sharing that with you. And then we were going to kind of explore some metaphors. Okay. But what has really come through is a process for how you can create metaphors around your messages, okay, and around the, you know, the gifts you have to give. So I'm going to share the process with you, give you a live example, and then we're going to see, you know, I'm going to answer any questions and maybe play out a few more live examples. Okay, so I'd recommend having a piece of paper or, you know, journal, notebook, iPad, whatever it is, to kind of note down the steps of the process. There's 5 steps, and then from that, hopefully you'll be able to create your own metaphors that are going to be able to connect with your supporters and really serve them. Okay. So go ahead, grab the piece of paper, pen, whatever it is, just to make a note of these 5 steps. And to highlight it, I'm gonna kind of use the dog shit example so that we can we've got something to kind of hang the process on as well. Okay. So the first step in how you create powerful metaphors that are going to move people and inspire them to action, inspire them to kind of share what you're doing, to become your supporters. The first thing is you need to know what your desired outcome is. You need to know what your desired outcome is. So the question is, what do you want your metaphor to achieve? Okay. So, you know, what is the desired outcome? What do you want your metaphor to achieve? All right. And using the dog shit example, I wanted my metaphor to kind of get people to really take on board the message. Don't let the beliefs of others or the words of others stop you from giving your gift. Okay. So that was the desired outcome I had. It's like, I wanted that to be the case, that they didn't let the beliefs of others stop them from giving their gifts. Okay. So the second stage is what's the core issue or idea? What is the core issue or idea? And the question here is what is happening? What is happening? Okay. So in the dog shit example, people were accepting the words or beliefs of others. People were accepting the negative words or beliefs of others. That's what was happening on a kind of core level. All right. So what's the core issue or idea? What's happening? And the third step then is, from that core issue or idea, what is, and these are just like the phrases that I'm using at the moment. We might think of some better ones. I really welcome your feedback on this because it's so fresh. The third thing is, from that core issue or idea, what is the universal principle or the essential activity that is happening? And the question here is, what's really happening? So in step 2, the core issue or idea, we were answering what's happening. Well, they were accepting the words and negative beliefs of others. So the third step, universal principle, essential activity. What is really happening? Well, they're choosing to, they're accepting or choosing to receive, right? That, whether it's words or beliefs or whatever, fundamentally, they are accepting or choosing to believe, right? Or choosing to receive, sorry. So accepting or choosing to receive, that's the essential activity that is happening, that's taking place, all right? And that's the third step, is identifying what is that universal principle or essential activity, okay? And the fourth stage then is to consider where else does that universal principle or essential activity happen, okay? So in the dog shit example, where else do people accept or choose to receive something? And the answer, of course, or one answer would be, well, around gifts or around Christmas, for example, okay? So, you know, I could have told a whole bigger story around, you know, imagine it's Christmas and Santa gives you a big steaming pile of dog shit, right? Okay. So, but fundamentally, step 4 is where else does the universal principle or essential activity happen? And so in the dog shit example, it's gifts or Christmas, right? So the fifth stage then, we have a little formula, which is step 2, the core issue or idea, multiplied by step 4, where else this essential activity or universal principle is happening, equals step 1, the desired outcome. Okay, and let me explain, how does that happen? Well, I took gifts and I was like, well, look, I don't want them to accept these gifts. So what would make these people who are coming across this idea of undermining their gifts because of others' negativity? If it was actually a Christmas gift, what would make them not accept that gift? What would make them say, no, keep that gift, I'm going to be okay in me? Well, if the gift was a piece of dog shit, right? So we call step 5 amplified transference, okay? And that is where you simply find a way to use the other areas that the essential activity is happening in to communicate a powerful way for you to achieve your desired outcome, okay? Now, there's a lot of language in there. Let me know, are you following? What questions do you have? And I'm going to use a real life example in a minute as well from one of the group, so that we can allow it to really sink in as well. But yeah, just at the moment, let me know how you're getting on. If there's anything you're not clear on, definitely check this out again. I'm going to return to this and kind of see how it goes, see if I can polish it up, make it simpler. But I hope you get a sense that there is a kind of process here, okay? Dear God, have you all gone silent? Let me get my, where's my live example? Where do I put that? Here. Cool. So I've got my live example. And I'm also aware perhaps that you're writing loads of notes down. So go, fantastic, do that if you need to, no problem at all. So could part 3 be community expectation? Yeah, I mean, I guess, or it could even be, Cam, we'll explore what your thing might be in detail if you want. But my guess is if you're saying community expectation, you could even be, it could even be like just expectations full stop, or yeah, it could be social conditioning. So yeah, so where else all kind of cool. So Michelle, Michelle can run. I'll be running through it again. So with a live example. So yeah, Cam, I guess or it could be kind of limiting expectations, or or kind of conditioning, all of those things. Where else do they happen? Well, maybe at school when or maybe your parents said go and do this job and you want to do that job. But let's map out a live example, and I'm actually going to use Cam. Okay, so a little bit of context. Cam is, really trying to create a bit of a revolution in Australian soccer. Okay, because Australian soccer, I can't remember exactly what the figure is, but each year it costs something like 3,000 Australian dollars, which is about £1,500 if you want to be a kid who plays football. Okay, and Cam can kind of correct me on the exact figures, but I think it's around that figure. Okay, and so of course a lot of parents don't have that. Can you imagine in the UK if just to be able to play football it costs you £1,500? Oh, so that's kind of more at a higher level, is it, Cam? Okay, cool. So, but I guess, but here's the thing: say if you want to be able to kind of pursue your football dream as far as you can go with it, it's going to cost you £1,500 as a kid in Australia, which is insane, right? So, here is a kind of example of how Cam might use a metaphor to kind of. So here's the thing: perhaps Cam wants to create some alternative ways for kids to play soccer. Okay, so maybe like some 5-a-side, 6-a-side games that are much cheaper for the parents to invest in. Okay, so what he might want to do is to create like a blog post or a series of videos that highlights the injustice of the soccer administration in Australia, right? So that would be his desired outcome, would be to demonstrate that the current soccer system in Australia is unjust, is unfair. Okay, so what's the core issue? So that's step one, right? His desired outcome is to demonstrate to the parents that that soccer in Australia is fundamentally unjust, unfair. Okay, so that's the desired outcome. The second step, the core issue or idea, well, the core is Aussie soccer is economically elitist, right? Aussie soccer is economically elitist. If you've got the money, then your kid can play whatever level they want to play at. If you haven't got the money, it doesn't matter how good the kid is, they're not going to be able to play. Okay, so what is therefore step three then is, what is the universal principle or the essential activity that's happening here? Well, fundamentally, it's discrimination, right? It's discrimination, isn't it? Because economic elitism of any form is a form of discrimination. Okay, so the universal principle at play is discrimination. All right. So step four, where else does discrimination happen? Where else does discrimination happen? Well, you could say in, racism is a very clear example. It's sexism as well. So we could say maybe the Ku Klux Klan, right? Ku Klux Klan. So, and just I'm assuming you all know what the Ku Klux Klan is, right? So step five, okay. So step four was, where else does discrimination happen? Answer, in the Ku Klux Klan. Okay. So step five, amplified transference, right? How do we connect back the core issue, which is discrimination, to this new area where discrimination happens, aka the Ku Klux Klan, and relate it back to the desired outcome? So how would this work? Do you think if you were a parent thinking about your son or daughter playing football, would this blog headline or video headline get your attention? What the Ku Klux Klan can teach us about Australian soccer. Okay, I'm guessing you might be interested, particularly if you put in like the next paragraph started, it's time to stop the lynchings of children's dreams and of parents' self-worth, right? That's, using this metaphor of discrimination of the Ku Klux Klan, immediately we have an article or a video that people are like, what is he on about here, right? And it gives Cam a very powerful way to make his message that at the heart of Australian soccer is an unjust, discriminatory system that massively needs to change. And that the parents who invest in Cam's programs can be a part of that revolution, of that change. Okay. So guys, let me know, by playing out that example, does that kind of give you a sense of how the process works? And there are a few things to mention as well, but just let me know that that makes sense. And then I'll mention a few bits and pieces just to make sure we're not going to get arrested, which is always a good thing. No one wants to get arrested. Cool, so it's working for Cam. I hope it's working for others. So, any questions, ping them up. I'll kind of make, I'll give you a few little kind of pointers as well here. So at the stage, at stage 4, where you're exploring where else the essential activity or universal principle happens. So, you know, in Cam's example, at the stage where you're exploring where else discrimination happens, that needs to be quite well known, right? So the example of the Ku Klux Klan, most people know what the Ku Klux Klan is. But if I picked some obscure little, council organization where discrimination was happening and said, hey, it's like the, East Staines, municipal council, people have got no idea what that is, right? So the way that the way the power of this process works is by making sure that the other area you choose to use to kind of for amplified transference is very well known. So everyone knows what dog shit is, right? Everyone knows what a gift is, okay? So that's why the dog shit example works so well. Everyone knows what a garden hose is, okay? So that's why the resistor example works so well, okay? Cool. And here's the thing: the more ridiculous you can make it, or the more kind of seemingly outlandish and seemingly unconnected you can make it, because like, what the hell is like the Ku Klux Klan got to do with football, right? But we can see now that we can make a very powerful case for a connection. Okay. Can you use a universal term or area without naming? Cam, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that question. So so just clarify that for me. But at the same time as you're trying to kind of make it quite outlandish or ridiculous, because the more outlandish or ridiculous it is, the more it's going to be like, oh my God, I can't ignore this, and I'm not going to forget the message, okay? Because you've got leaving tonight, right? Every one of you is going to know that there's fundamental corruption at the heart of Australian soccer because of the Ku Klux Klan metaphor, okay? It has power. That said, there is a need to find a balance, okay? You want to kind of shock a little bit. You want to shock, but there's a fine line between shock and offending. Now, it may well be that, for example, that Ku Klux Klan metaphor might go a bit too far. Say if there were any black people on the call, they might be like, look, George, you've probably gone a bit too far there. You couldn't actually use that. It's a good example, a way of explaining it, but you couldn't maybe use it. And the best way to find out is to just kind of test it with some people who, so say I used one around, something around women, maybe I'd call my sisters and be like, is this a bit too much? Could I use that? So yeah, make sure, because here's the thing. What you want to do is to kind of give people a bit of a shock, but then to go, oh, that's a really creative way of looking at it. I really understand this situation a bit more. You don't want them to go, this guy's a fucking dick. I'm going to fucking post this all over Twitter and Facebook and make sure he gets hounded and abused, or she, okay? Yeah, get that balance right, that shock versus offend balance, okay? Let me ask this. Would the same message you gave be the same as without the KKK, but use discrimination happens everywhere? Yes, Cam. But you can see that the power of the kind of metaphor came from the KKK, which is something that's very, very it's a very strong symbol in people's minds, and it's well known as well. So, but yeah, you could even use it like, I'm trying to think. Here's the thing. So you could even go something as simple as, as a parent, you wouldn't give one child a banana and not give the other child a banana. Well, this is what the Australian football system is doing. If parents can afford the bananas, all children get all the bananas they want. If parents can't afford the bananas, doesn't matter. The kids don't get the nutrition. Okay, so you could go with something like that. Does that make sense? But it's if you just say discrimination, it's kind of like, oh, okay, it doesn't quite land with the same power. Okay, so does that answer the question? Yeah, specific symbol is better than something generic. Yeah, so so most people can understand that. Most people know what a child is. Most people know what banana is. So giving one child a banana and not giving another child a banana, they get that that's fundamentally unjust and unfair. Okay. So yeah, guys, any questions? Let me know. Maybe you're you're madly working through your own metaphors using the process. And here's the thing. Let's do some more live examples. We're heading into the lock-in session now. So that's the process. That's the session. But if any of you got, hey, this is my message. how could I turn that into a metaphor? Well, let's test this. Let's apply this process that literally has just come through now. Let's see if it works. Okay. So hit me up if any of the messages you want to share. What are the things you want to be known for? What are the values you want to be known for? How could you use a metaphor to share with someone, share with the world the values you stand for? Let's explore that. So go ahead, post up something. Post up something you're pondering. How can I turn this into a metaphor? Let's do it live. And Michelle, if you're still watching and haven't fallen asleep, have you managed to hear me okay now? Is there anything you need re-explaining? Seb, how are you getting on over at the hub? Maybe Edwin's there with you. Well, no questions, no potential metaphors, no seeds of a metaphor that long to burst into a glorious oak tree of meaning and communication and power. Give me the most anticlimactic end to a session ever. It's like, let's do this. Oh. All right, well, maybe you guys are all good. So, Cam, is that so? How segregation in society can be used as a guide to a better footballing future? How does that sound? No, you're on the right path. I'd make it kind of snappier and more, more kind of captivating. It doesn't really stir any emotions. I'm like, that sounds to me, Cameron, like a subheading, maybe. Unless you're advocating for segregation, but it would be like, okay, Michelle, cool, no worries. Stefan said, yeah, Michelle, obviously being an author, someone who's good with words, let me know how the session lands when you do get a chance to rewatch it, because I think there's something in it. So Cam, yeah, that sounds like potentially like a subheading or segregation studies. You've got to do a better footballing future. So yeah, you can. I mean, you could go something like, Cam. I think one of the things that's quite definitely not for segregation. Okay, cool. So you could go for something like, a lot of people talk about the kind of 1%, and so Michelle, no need to apologise. So Cam, you could say something like, why the 1% are not just fucking up the world, they're fucking up football too. Something like that. Okay, probably not with the F word. Okay, why how the 1% are not just destroying the world, they're destroying football as well. Okay, and people are like, what? I know about the bankers and all that, but I didn't know they're doing it in football. So people kind of get, they go, okay, right. So do you kind of get where I'm going? It needs to be something that people kind of connect, like instantly the headline should grab them. It should be interesting. And then you could say, then you can go like, what we have fundamentally is a massively elitist thing. Okay. So yeah, I hope that gives you a bit more sense. And here's the thing, guys, have some fun with this. Have some fun with this. I love kind of coming up with metaphors, like creative ways to kind of get my get people thinking about, oh, that sounds interesting, I might click on that. Yeah, I mean, so one thing I used on my blog, I remember, was like, I think the title was "The Sacred Art of Taking the Piss." Okay, and so there I've got, you know, taking the piss and sacredness, you know, they don't really seem to go together, right? And actually what I was talking about was using urine therapy to kind of cure mouth ulcers and all this sort of stuff, right? So literally taking the piss. And it was a very sacred thing because in one of the oldest ancient Indian texts, the Vedas, there's like whole verses on urine therapy. Okay, so it literally is a sacred art of healing, of taking the piss. But I then used that as a metaphor to say, you know, well, you know, what stories have been forgotten or suppressed that actually would do you amazing good if you chose to believe them and connect with them in the present age, basically. So so yeah, have some fun with this as well, guys. I know this has been quite a kind of heady and intellectual thing, but even if you just take the thing of what's going on at the core, and in Cam's case, discrimination, how can I create a metaphor around that core thing, right? That might be even a simpler way of thinking about it, okay? Cool. So Karen, hope that's useful. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of you know, delve into this again, see if I can polish it up. For those of you who are going to rewatch it, do kind of let me know your thoughts as it kind of lands a bit. And of course, any questions, hit me up on Messenger, on the comments here. Give me a call, give me an email, and you know, I can't wait to help you kind of take things further. Okay. And I haven't got my thing with me that says what's happening tomorrow, but it's going to be awesome because they're all awesome. So, guys, thank you so much. Do hit me up with any other questions, and I cannot wait to serve you tomorrow and to hear some. Yeah, give me some metaphors. Like, write a blog post that's got a crazy title. Get me interested. You know, apply this, use this stuff, and yeah, let's see how it lands for you guys. Go well. Thank you for your time, your energy, your love, your effort, and I will see you tomorrow.